Alright guys, such coming here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL officially returns tonight, far from the only talking point though of the day. OpTic Stream yet more practice yesterday, arguably the most impressive scrim set over the last few days, but also Scump and FormaL getting into it a little bit over all this watch party stuff that's happened over the last couple of weeks since FormaL stepped away from competing in Halo. FormaL wants to do less, Scump isn't so convinced by his reasoning, but FormaL does clarify in greater detail exactly what this means for now and for the future. Very much intro to your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, we've got a lot to get into. I wanted to start quickly with this because we talked a lot about the state of Call of Duty over the last few days. Should we continue to expect yearly releases going forwards? Would that be a good idea for Activision and Microsoft to continue with? Because BO7, as far as I think most of us are concerned, is one of the best COD games we've seen in some time. Be it its performance, its sales, these other factors are not looking so good, and I guess the fear is that Microsoft says, well, Treyarch, you failed, all of this stuff you tried to do was bad, so we're going to listen to Infinity Ward again and let them run the show, which probably not for the best, let's be honest. But according to Ghost to Hope, Microsoft actually does think BO7 is good. It's followed BO6, and as BO6 went on, as the BO6 season kind of transpired, nobody really cared anymore. And then BO7 dropping now just isn't optimal for the state of the franchise. So, you know, I'm hoping that that is the conclusion. Obviously, it's not great for COD full stop, but if Activision, Microsoft, they look at all this and they say, okay, we actually think BO7 is a good game, it's just a victim of circumstance, then it's probably better for what we're going to see in the future, and Infinity Ward might just not be able to completely rip everything up again as they normally do. This is a 3-minute 40 video here from S&D Dylan, but I did want to just quickly skim through some of the stuff that he's come up with here. Of course, quite a few of these on Standoff. Not sure if Standoff is going to be played for this upcoming season. I mean, like, where is he up to over here? Like, I don't know how he finds some of this stuff. Anyway, this is Standoff. Is it going to be played this season? Certainly not yet, if it even is. And whether the pros will put it in full stop, I think, is also an interesting... I mean, what is this cat doing? Whether the pros put it in full stop is an interesting question. He's also here on Colossus. I mean, this one's pretty outrageous, I'm not going to lie. So, yeah, that's certainly one of the spots of all time. There's some other ideas. I mean, what did he come up with here on the raid? Let me just have a look at this one real quick. So he's come up through the water here on the pool side, and then he's... Okay, sure. Okay, that's probably not going to be allowed. Alright, I'm not going to watch the rest of this. There's just too many, there's too much of this stuff going on. But the point is, these maps are kind of broken. Utopia, is it going to be in the game? We've had some thoughts on that over the last few days. Utopia, Standoff, Fate, those are the three potentially viable maps that have come in. Fate, probably not. Standoff, look, I love Standoff. I don't know, maybe Search and Destroy could work. Utopia, somewhat hopeful for, but the pros aren't going to test it yet. That's the kind of frustrating thing. It's almost inevitable, and Shotzzy isn't wrong that they are not changing the map pool until after Major 1. The CDL have officially said this, they've officially confirmed this. It ain't changing before we finish up in Dallas. The issue is there's not a massive turnaround between the end of Dallas and the start of the Major 2 qualifiers, which go on for a very long time. The teams possibly will make changes after Major 1 as well. So where's the time to scrim new maps? There really isn't all that much. The time, to be honest, is over Christmas, New Year. Because after this weekend of matches, there's no COD in the CDL for 3 weeks. There'll be other stuff happening in tournaments and scrims and all that. But surely that's the perfect time for the teams to say, okay, we'll just try out Utopia, we'll try out these other maps, play a couple of scrims on them so we can see at the end of the January whether we think they're viable or not. The point, I think, is the CDL just has to say, alright, it's in or it's not in, you guys deal with it effectively. Because if the pros don't want to test it until after Major 1, there's just not enough time, right? Like, they're going to scrim Utopia after Major 1. Some of the teams are making changes. By the time the pros even come to an agreement on whether they think it's good or not at all, too late for the CDL to make changes. So I think the CDL might just have to step into this one, or hopefully the pros might even try it out a little bit over the Christmas New Year period. Thankfully, there are still plenty more maps coming down the pipeline. The other thing that Benjay was talking about was on the Sniper GA. So we know that there's a current rule on only 2 Sniper lives allowed per game. If you survive a round with the Sniper still in hand, you get to use it again until you die, then you get only one more opportunity. What Benjay was talking about was that that doesn't necessarily have to be with the same player. You know, it's possible that you could have one sniper pull it out, and when they die, you then swap it over. So Benjay's expecting that to be the case a little more often. Mamba says, to his understanding, there is no set GA on who has to use it, right? It does not like there only has to be one man per team. They could potentially swap. Teams wouldn't necessarily, but it's something they could at least think about. I did see Zinni talking here as well about, like, in round 11, I think they should just allow the snipers anyway. I think there's also some questions on whether the 2-life rule is really any good, because, you know, if the other team's got a sniper and he's popping off with it, how do you counter him? Well, the counter is you pull out another sniper, or you might be cooked. Now, if you can't pull out another sniper because you got popped by him 2 rounds in a row, it's like, okay, I'm going to counter this guy. He's killed me once. I go somewhere else, he's killed me again. Okay, well, this third time I'm going to get him back. But oh, wait, I can't do that anymore because I lost my 2 gunfights against him. So now he just gets to continue his reign of terror. So it's interesting because the whole point of the 2-life rule is to make the snipers less powerful compared to what the pros think they're very strong, which they are to a certain extent. But does that not kind of make them even stronger when it reduces a way for me to counter them if one of the guys on the other team is popping off with it? So that, I think, is a bit of a question. But last night we got some scrims again. OpTic, Shotzzy, they've been streaming a lot of practice over the last few days. It's great to see, actually. And they've been playing a lot of teams. Now, we did have a couple of scrims that they played. They played Cloud9 first of all. This one was not pretty, right? Like, this was pretty bad. They 7-0'd Cloud9. It was not particularly close. The overloads were 5-2, 5-1, and 7-1 respectively. Colossus was the hard point where Cloud9 got the most points with 147. So, yeah, this was a brutal series. 250 to 82 Cloud9 on the Scar. I mean, look, it's interesting. If you're scrimming OpTic right now, you've got to go into it with a different mentality, I think, because if your mentality is, all right, we're going to beat these guys, and then you get 100 point clubs game 1 and you just get demoralized and lose full for the rest of the series, that's not ideal, because if there's one team that you can learn the most from right now, it is OpTic. So, ideally for Cloud9 and the other teams that OpTic have scrimmed this week, that's what they will take away from it. But also, it's got to be just a little bit humbling when you get battered up like this. So, just interesting to look at a couple of these scoreboards. I always like looking at the hill time, what's going on here. Actually, Shotzzy was in the hill for a minute and a half. Dashy had the most hill time. This game, again, it was Dashy with 143 seconds in the hill. This time they split it a little bit more between the others. But interesting that in both of these screenshots anyway, Mercules with about 30 seconds, he's just roaming around and slaying, and Dashy's doing the job in the hill. So that seems to be the approach that's working for OpTic right now. Dashy used that to great effect as well over the last couple of years too. So yeah, just a couple of screenshots there. Huke on this map, the exposure was 41 in 16. The more interesting scrim set in theory was going on to play the Gentlemates, right? Of course, potentially the other best team in the game. It's really difficult to say who is the second best team. Gentlemates beat them in that tournament not that long ago. But as we know, there were some caveats. It was late night, Shotzzy was past his bedtime and all that. So, Gentlemates did not start off 2-0 in the league either. They got Nezloed by FaZe. They were dominant in the hardpoints, notably in that series against FaZe, but they got Nezloed in the search and destroys and the overload. Now, of course, speaking of good hardpoint for Gentlemates, OpTic definitely changed the perception on that to a degree. Look, this was a 4-0. Guess they didn't play the overloads. Looking to call it a day after this, but this was the Scar 252-10. Dashy had 50 eliminations this map. This time it was Mercules with nearly 2 minutes in the hill. So, just as I say, interesting to go through some more of these screenshots. Competitive map, this one. The other maps, less competitive. The Den looks really good for OpTic right now. Whoever they play on Den, they seem to batter them. Again, Dashy with 100 seconds in the hard points. Shotzzy was 36 in 21 this map. They played the exposure, 250-176. Huke had 49 elims. Again, it's Dashy and Mercules this time, sharing the hill time. So, yeah, just some interesting results. The Colossus was a 100-point club as well, 250-99. So, yeah, OpTic clearly establishing themselves as the team to beat as it stands. There's also this clip from that Colossus when they played Gentlemates where, well, Shotzzy was certainly shooting back in this one. So, OpTic play tomorrow. They've only got one game this weekend. We'll talk about the games in a couple of minutes, what to expect. But yeah, OpTic considered the best team in the game going in. They've certainly looked like that so far since the CDL has officially been here. They started out 2-0, but you know, they are going to have better competition surely in their official CDL matches, and we're going to see how they get on there, because of course they'll want to go to their home event in Dallas and collect their rings and also win the event at the same time, right? That's a big challenge, but it's something they could absolutely do on this current form. Not like they're going to be able to stay in absolutely godlike form all year. Teams go through highs and lows, but right now, OpTic haven't lost in a very long time since pretty much the World Championship, right? They've been on this massive series win streak. But let's talk about what FormaL had to say. Well, initially, really what Scump had to say on this watch party situation. So, FormaL's been on the watch party couple of days last weekends. And, well, it turns out he's not the biggest fan of it. Now, he's not the biggest fan of it for not quite the reasons that you might believe, at least initially. Because Scump says, like, I've got bad news. FormaL doesn't want to do the watch party. He thinks it's too hard, reading out all the super chats and thanking everyone.
For the CDL format? I don't like the CDL format, bro. I think the CDL format's, like, kind of shit still. I think the online, they should just get rid of this whole online league thing, dude. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's like there's too much weight in the online matches. Too much weight in the online matches can determine how your LAN event goes, and I don't like that. Start a loser bracket, that's brain dead. Only 8 teams at champs, is that still a thing? It's hard because they can't really do pool play right, unless they just did 3 pools of 4. You could do 4 pools of 3, but that's also trolly. If they did 4 pools of 3, and then they did like top 2 go to winners, and then they have the last team being losers, but at least they get a chance on LAN to like get that chance.
Oh wait, I didn't tell you guys. I didn't tell you guys the bad news. I don't know if I want to tell you guys the bad news. I kind of checked my dope when I heard it. Just say it? Okay, I'll say it. FormaL said he only wants to be on the watch party for 1 day a week instead of 2. That's the bad news. It's pretty bad news because I love having him on, but yeah, he only wants to be on 1 day instead of 2. He said it's too hard. He said he's like thanking subs and stuff. He said it's just too hard. He just feels like out of flow on it, which, I mean, I kind of get, because like you don't want to be thanking subs and stuff like when gameplay's going on. And but yeah, he hit us with some bad news. I was very sad. I wasn't expecting it. It kind of just came out of nowhere, really. So it'll probably be like me, Hector, Zin, Bose on Fridays. He'll come on. I think he said he wants to come on Sundays. And then Saturdays, I don't know if we'll do 3-man or if we're going to try and find someone else to join us. Not really sure what the plan's going to be. 1 day's better than 0? Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I mean, at least he's still going to be on. If he would have said, yo, I'm never coming on again, I would have been super checked. And that's exactly what I said to him whenever he texted me. I said, 1's better than none, brother.
Obviously a huge amount of respect between Scump and FormaL, so this isn't going to come between them to any means. But clearly Scump would like FormaL on the show more often, but FormaL's reasoning is, you know, a little bit more nuanced, right? Because FormaL says, like, too hard is not the right wording here. I just wanted to come on 1 day a week instead of 2 days. It's hard for me to break the games down and stuff with 4 people potentially talking over each other. With my recent streams, I found enjoyment in breaking down the gameplay, and to do that, I've got to do it with full focus. As I've said numerous times now that I wanted to spend especially the first couple of months back to streaming, connecting with my fans, it's hard to respond to chatters in a way that I feel connects us. I still love being on Set's watch party and will still be on every weekend, just not every single time. So I thought that was a good response from FormaL already, putting things into context, and I think this actually makes an awful lot of sense. FormaL's, let's say, individual watch parties, when he watches along on his own channel, I think it's been absolutely fantastic, right, hearing his breakdown and all that. And look, he can't do that. It's the same reason why last year I would pretty much exclusively watch the Octane watch party. I think it was just the best one, because, you know, he would talk through the gameplay, and a lot of the time he would mute out of the call, and it would effectively just be him breaking down the gameplay as it was going on. Then that was a great watch, and it's similar for FormaL's one so far this year. Now, the other watch parties absolutely have their benefits as well. I'm not, like, detracting from the entertainment value that the other watch parties bring. I just really loved Octane's watch party last year, and I think that FormaL, to kind of give the watching analysis and to basically do the commentary that he wants to do, and also interact with the community in the way that he wants to interact with the community, it's, you know, his own kind of show and stream is doing that better for him right now than being on the Seth watch party. Not to say that he won't still do that, because he says he will, but you know, not every time, right? So it's gone from 2 days down to 1 day. Will it go down to 0 days? I don't know. Hopefully not. I think it'd be nice to see them still interacting on that watch party, but thought it was a little interesting because clearly Scott wants FormaL on the show like all the time, and FormaL is, you know, less keen to make that happen every single day, which also makes sense. So I think there's a bit of nuance to this discussion, so intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. These are the games of this weekend. So OpTic play Heretics tomorrow, a team that they have had problems with in the past. We've got some good games again this weekend. For example, tomorrow, Gentlemates versus Thieves is a very interesting one. A couple of interesting games on Sunday as well, such as Koi versus FaZe. Obviously, Falcons need to try and get on the board. Tonight, they've got an opportunity to do so. So these are the 3 games of today. Falcons play Ravens. That's the first up. Big game for Falcons, I mean, obviously for both teams, really. But Falcons, after an 0-2 start last week, they played OpTic, they played Thieves. They need to get on the board here. I can foresee a competitive series. I think it might come down to a Game 5. G2 Boston, actually very interesting right now. I think you'd maybe consider G2 to be the marginal favourites. But yeah, Boston, again, it's like, I look at these series, certainly the first 2, you can feel a Game 5 coming on. Maybe I'm taking G2 in 5, but yeah, I'll see. If Boston Search and Destroy impresses me, then I'll be a little bit higher on that team. I'm still a Boston believer, but yeah, I don't know. I want to manage expectations of Boston this season. G2 have looked solid enough this year so far. Surge versus Toronto. We'll see what Surge can do. They're calling this like, oh, the Battle of Canada, which, I mean, it is. But how many Canadian players do they have across those 2 teams? Well, yeah, you guessed right, 0. So, you know, this whole geolocation thing continues to crack me up a little bit. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Tonight, I'm not sure I'll be able to get a video done just because I'm in Poland right now for a swimming competition for the next couple of days still. And it's going to be a late finish tonight. And I've got to get up relatively early tomorrow. So I'll probably just do a video early tomorrow, breaking everything down and talking about the storyline. And then we'll see how we get on for the rest of the weekend. But yeah, thanks for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.